Hello, you're watching Hornbill TV's Evening News. The Confederation of Nagaland Chamber of Commerce and Industry decided to go with all Nagaland indefinite shutter down starting 27th April as there was no positive response from the state government during their meeting with the authorities. The CNCCI asked all its district units to cooperate and ensure shutter down in their respective districts. However, banking establishments, educational institutions, government offices and all medical related activities will be kept outside the purview of the shutter down. As a call for a shutter down or band has been widely accepted, is this a clarion call from the public of Nagaland to show their dissent? When Hornbill TV reporters went down to the ground, it was widely seen that the public has accepted the call of the DCCI for the shutter down, especially with regards to buying commodities that are taxed and multiple taxed. Now, in this special bulletin of Hornbill TV, we will discuss with our senior news analyst Al Nguli. We will discuss about the problems or rather the effects of multiple taxation and what the public has to suffer. So, first of all, sir, thank you so much for joining us on this newsroom. Beginning with my questions, on the 25th, there was a call for a shutter down or rather a shutter down of all business establishments, but particularly in the area of Dimapur. It was called by the DCCI or rather the Dimapur Chamber of Commerce and Industries to call for a shutter down because of multiple taxations by multiple groups. Well, this move was supported by all various CSOs or civil society organizations. Even other District Chamber of Commerce and Industry supported this. So, when in Nagaland's context, when you speak about this, we saw on the April of 19th that Eastern Nagaland abstained and there was zero voter turnout during the Lok Sabha elections. When it happened yesterday on the 26th of April, which coincidentally happened with the second phase of polling, we also saw that Dimapur, Chumugidima, Newland, Kohima, Mokchung, Wokha, they all had shut it down. So, sir, do you think that unity amongst Nagas is there and that when it comes to a greater cause, we are all there to support each other?
Yeah, I think unity should have been the prerequisite for anything that we do as a people. And I think one of the most overused terms in the Naga vocabulary has been unity. And unfortunately, over the past about 40 years, some of the people that have been calling for unity and brotherhood across the state of Nagaland and the Naga inhabited areas, the same ones that have been calling for unity are unfortunately the same ones that is perpetuating disunity and disintegration.
Yes.
But at least in the case of what we are experiencing right now in Dimapur, the band that has been called by the business communities,
yes,
I think it was very natural for the business community and the people, the public, to naturally respond to something that has been a disease since the 50s. And of course, there was a time that I remember, even in my childhood, to be contributing food, relief materials, or offering shelter to the Naga nationalists. The freedom fighters those days was considered something that should be done out of the heart and something that excuse me, I'm distracted. So that was something that came naturally. You did it from your heart and you did not out of compulsion or force, but because you truly cared for the land and the people. So the situation we see today has come to such a point that the force that has been exerted on the people, on the citizens, their economic lives and the community, the business community, it has come to a point where we have no option but to resort to bands, resort to protests, public agitations. So this is something that we have been suffering for a long time. Everyone, my mother used to have her salary deducted, you know, I think it was 12%, 5%, I don't know, but it used to be deducted from her salary for many years until she retired. Everyone knows this. The business community they are often put under duress, and they are the targets of extortionists all the time. How many factions do we have, Akive? 29, 19, 24, 24, right?
Exact, yes.
Yeah. So where do you get all the money to pay these factions? I wish money could be plucked from the trees, from the mango trees, from the jackfruit trees. We don't have the money to pay all these factions. So we have been suffering this for a long time. So of course the situation in eastern Nagaland and whatever happened there, the boycott of the elections, they're abstaining from voting in the election, that's a totally different issue. But somehow it also reflects a common cause that they felt was a part of their compulsion to be united. But again, when you talk of the ban that is being enforced by the business community, I think for this one, I think it was natural for all of us to respond, because this is not something that is exclusive to the business people. This is not something exclusive to the citizens. This is something that is entirely a co-experienced experience for all of us, extortion and the impact it is having on the economic lives of the citizenry.
All right, so at this point, you just mentioned a very important word. So you called it a disease that has been going on. Our reporter, Kekriseno Kevo, also, when she went out today and she went to the Bokajan fuel station, and the fuel station, when she was reporting from there, she had mentioned in public that Nagaland is facing another lockdown. But this time the disease is not COVID, but this time the disease is extortion. So do you believe that this lockdown is necessitated so that the public can actually have a normal life, and rather getting bullied, or rather getting extorted, or rather getting threatened? Do you believe that this lockdown is also should, and or in other terms, is happily applicable to the Naga citizens?
Yeah, I mean, as unpleasant as it sounds, and of course the difficulties and inconveniences that comes with enforcing bans and strikes, especially at a public level, I think it is something that is not welcome. If you look at the way our system works, it is not something that we require all the time, but I think this is something we also need, because unfortunately, in a society like ours, we need bans and strikes for us to be able to draw the attention of the government. And sadly, it is it's very unfortunate, because we need bans to actually draw the attention of the government and the authorities to say, hey, we're suffering. So unpleasant as it sounds, I think this is something that we really needed, but that doesn't mean I think it should be prolonged so that the condition of the people will be affected, where essential supplies will be affected, where they'll have trouble meeting their daily transactions, where they'll have problems and inconveniences in meeting their daily work or traveling. So it is not something that is welcome to everyone, but I would say it's a necessary evil in some way. So at least because of this, the government, it's not like they don't know, the government knows it. The government knows that extortion has been going across Nagaland for the past 3 to 4 decades now. But then again, we needed this to actually reinforce our voice that, hey, we're suffering. And I think it's time for us to really, speak up. And it's time for you to just look at us once and see what we are going through. So I would say it's not always welcome, but it is definitely required at this point, actually.
All right. So on another aspect, when political people, or rather political parties, come to the state of Nagaland, or rather existing parties that are in the state of Nagaland, we always talk about infrastructure development, and we talk about development of this and that, the roads, the highways, the buildings, the infrastructure. So in a way, we have not seen this type of a public campaign where a leader has openly come to the state of Nagaland and has given a suggestion, or rather a warning, or rather a clarion call to the people, saying that there is a syndicate in Nagaland that actually controls the sale of essential commodities.
They're everywhere.
When Congress had come, I mean, all the public in Nagaland, of course, as sons, as daughters, we have in a way been exposed to the fact that we are building a structure of our own house. Now, there was a public leader that came for this campaign in Nagaland, and he is from Punjab and rather from Delhi. And now he had this to say, sir. So I just want to ask you a question after we heard this clip from this Congress leader.
In Nagaland today, there is a syndicate running. That syndicate is not of BJP, NDPP alone. They are the lords and the masters. That syndicate is of extortion. That syndicate is of corruption. That syndicate is of markup prices. I was checking with Mr. Jameel today. Just to give you, somebody wants to construct a house. The iron bars cost almost 55 rupees a kg in Dimapur today, while they cost 30 rupees in Delhi. Why? 25 rupees can't be the cost of transportation, and anyway we don't have steel factories in Delhi. Most of them comes from Odisha, which is closer to you than to New Delhi. Is it not clear? Is it not correct that it's impossible? The highest price of bricks anywhere in India is today in Nagaland. It is impossible to buy sand for ordinary people to construct a house, to buy minimum basic needs of the household have become impossible. And unemployment is at its nadir today. I was trying to look at the data for Nagaland. The graduate unemployment rate is 40%. The postgraduate unemployment rate is 45%. What will happen to thousands of these young men and women?
All right, sir. So the leader that you saw speaking on the screen was Congress's Surjewala, and he was talking about a syndicate that exists in Nagaland, especially when it comes to the construction sector. Well, when HornbillTV tried to access all its correspondence, we found some normal rates. We found that in Tripura, the rate of bricks is actually 7 to 8 rupees. We found in Manipur, due to the situation, the rate of bricks, one piece of brick, is rupees 15. We found from Assam that it's around 10 rupees in Bokajan. We found in Meghalaya that the rate of bricks is about 7 rupees 50 paise to 8 rupees. Now, if you look at it, Mizoram is selling bricks at 19 rupees. So, do you believe that with such prices that are existent in Nagaland, do you think there is a scope for infrastructure development, and do you believe that the syndicate is the one, or rather extortion is another reason why when the public buys one piece of brick, he needs to pay more than 10 rupees of money just for one piece of brick? Do you believe that this should stop?
Definitely, why not? When I was growing up, there used to be a saying in our community, you don't build good houses because we used to call them Oraivan. Oraivan means underground in Lotha. So there used to be a saying in our community, don't build good houses or the Oraivan people will come and collect taxes from you. So those days, it was very rare for people to actually, build nice houses. So it's ironic that in this age, like it's only rich people that can actually afford. I built a house. I think the price of a brick was about 17 rupees, I think 17 or 12 rupees. And now we are looking at Manipur. We're looking at, Manipur is a bit expensive. We're looking at Tripura. We're looking at Shillong, where they sell bricks for 8 or 7 rupees. That is affordable. But if you're talking about Nagaland, with all the syndication going on, with all the nexuses, we don't say it in public. The government won't say it. The police won't say it, maybe. But the account has been fighting what we call this culture of syndication in Dimapur and in Nagaland. They started way back in 2014, 2013. And it's not a secret that the businesses themselves, I believe they are also engaged in some kind of what you call politically correct, in a politically correct term, collaboration. But these are syndicates, and these are the people that enforce prices, and not necessarily by the authority. These are the very people that enforce the prices. So it affects the common person's economic welfare. So whatever goes on in the market also goes through various stages of extortion, illegal taxation. So in order for you to make up the profit margins, you have to hike it up. That I believe is, no, that is illegal. So I think definitely this should stop. This should stop.
All right, sir. In this regard, there is more information. If you look within our districts itself, I mean, in Twensang, a piece of brick is costing 22 rupees.
Ooh,
in
a lot.
Longling, it's costing 22 rupees to 24 rupees. And in Shamator district, the newly created district, a brick is costing you rupees 24. So do you believe that if there are sections, I mean, if you look at Itabata, that every Naga knows that that is where the brick kiln is. From the point of manufacture, there's multiple tax. So by the time it reaches Twensang, it goes up to the amount of 22. If that can happen in Twensang, when it reaches Longling, it's reaching to 23 to 24. And when it reaches Shamator, it's literally going up to rupees 24. So this call of the DCCI and the CNCCI to stop this unabated taxation, do you think that this is a very valid call of this organization so as to also uplift the business community in Nagaland and also to give some relief to the public people?
Yeah, definitely it's a valid call, Akive, and I think this is something we all should agree. But there's a word of caution here, Akive. One thing we should remember that in trying to resolve this issue of extortion, the syndication, I hope that it will not give birth to another monster. Because if you resolve this, it will also mean that the business community itself will come to have a lot of functional power, in the sense that they will have greater say in the pricing market. Akive.
Yes.
I don't know if you have studied this, but in resolving this issue of extortion and prices, there is a very high chance that the functional prices of a certain market demographic will be controlled by the business community one way or the other. With or without extortion, we also see that the prices of fish, pork, chicken, vegetables, they are always fluctuating. If you go to the 4th Mile market and ask for the price of potatoes, it's going to be different from what is being sold there in Purna Bazaar. So even within the business community themselves, there is no regulations and there's no authorities to look after them. So again, this is exactly the reason why there are syndicates. They come and exploit the gaps. So while it is a valid call, and I think this is something that we all should support, we should be supporting the business community, because like I said, the problem of extortion and illegal taxation is not limited only to the business people. It's also affecting the common people, the small businesses, the corner vegetable sellers, the government employees too. So it's a valid call. We should support all this, but I think there's, like I said, a word of caution that has to be inserted here within the sentences, that we should make sure that in solving one problem, there should not be another monster that is created in the process. Akive.
All right, so in this regard, on the 25th, there was a call by the DCCI to have a shutter band, and that was gracefully accepted by the public in Dimapur at least. And then after which they held a cabinet meeting, and due to which there was no resolute solution, the CNCCI, or rather the parent organization, called for a shutter band all over Nagaland. Well, today Hornbill TV, when our reporter Kekar Seno Kevo went out to see the situation at the ground level, this was something that the public had to say.
itu bar shutdown karne inega CNCCI kan bra matia do apni la bhapna ke je multiple taxation bishi huishe kwa je taxation to ta na reason to valid asna ina shutdown ekta matiule statewide.
Yeah, definitely as a public to mohan la so right ase ki we have to protest against illegal taxation, but at the same time relaxation should be given for some essential commodities like oil, like medicine and all that. If they can consider that, it is good. Okay.
So what are your thoughts on, the increasing number of factions? Because itya hoile bis manu social media hane hoile bishi aru notun faction ulawole asne goina speculate bi kura here se kami bishi jaze. So the increasing number of factions, what are your thoughts on that?
No, that is horrible. That is the reason why we are suffering today. That is the reason why DCCI as well as all the trade unions everywhere else in Nagaland, they are protesting against that. That is horrible. What type of freedom fighters, what they are calling themselves, I don't believe in that. Today we are having lots of factions. These are warlords. They are here to tax the public, not to fight for the public. That is what they have instilled in everybody's mind today.
All right, sir. So that was a public that our reporter Kekreseno Kevo conversated with, and he said that the call was legit, but if only if the DCCI could give a window. How important do you think a short period of window would be comfortable, or rather conveniently, how would it help the public so that they can also go about their daily lives?
Yeah, I think because the bond right now is indefinite, which means we don't know whether it will end now or it will continue till next year. We don't know. So I think to allay the fears of the community, and especially for people who have children and the elderly at home, I think it will be easier for them if they get some kind of a window for them to be able to get their essential commodities to shop for the daily needs. And I think, yeah, maybe an hour or two in a day will be really good, because in the first place, the bond was not enforced. It was not forced. It was not a degree. It was in fact voluntary. It was a voluntary call, and even the business community members, I think they have said that it's voluntary. They're doing it voluntary. So if it is voluntary in the first place, then I think it'll be even more easy for them to say, okay, we'll open the shop for 1 or 2 hours in a day so that you won't face any problems. So definitely a small window would be great for the community, actually.
All right, so in this regard, when the DCCI had a meeting, a closed door meeting with the authorities yesterday on the 26th of April, which led to the CNCCI calling for a shutter bund today on the 27th of April, there was a provision, or rather a report, or rather sources told HornbillTV that the authorities have asked for a stringent law, and in this regard they have said people connected to this extortion case, especially with business establishments, they should be tried under the NSA Act, which is a very stringent law. So do you believe that with the application, or rather with the execution of the NSA Act being applied to these offenders, do you believe that the extortion cases, or rather we would call the red slips or the yellow slips, do you think that is going to decrease in Nagaland? And do you also believe that the authority, or rather the police of Nagaland, or Nagaland police, which has also been advised to increase their presence around town areas so that people can report directly to them, do you believe that such moves, or such moves taken by the government, is going to strengthen the business community and give the public a fair right?
That's a difficult question, Akive, because there have been a lot of times that the government authorities have tried to come up with a solution to address extortion in Nagaland. I remember it was way back 2008 or 2009, and that this MLA is still sitting in the Nagaland Legislative Assembly. This MLA said in the assembly that the Naga underground groups should be given allowance. This is a fact. If you go and check the newspaper archives, they have reported it. I myself wrote it. So this MLA, who is in the Nagaland Legislative Assembly even currently, he said to reduce extortion in Nagaland so that the Naga nationalist groups do not come and ask money from you, I think the government of Nagaland should actually start an allowance scheme for the underground groups. That guy is still sitting there. So that's the kind of approach that we have when it comes to extortion. On the other side, we have ideological values that we hold it close to our hearts, the nationalist movement, the people and the land, the whole political movement. We have historical and emotional ties to it. So on the other hand, there is the dilemma. If we don't have money, if you keep taking it from us, how are we going to build our society? What kind of businesses are we going to build and progress? How are we going to take the society forward if our economic livelihood is always under duress, is always under duress and falls and threats? So that's the dilemma we have. But that aside, I think this is a problem that should be addressed at both the policy and the community level. On the other hand, I think the community can come up with a stance of its own, or let's pay or let's not pay. On the side of the government, they have the constitutional and legislative tools with which to address extortion. Now, okay, until the Home Department issued this order saying that extortionists should all be tried under the National Security Act. Yes. Before this, all these activities were regulated and tried under the Indian Penal Code. Yes. It was under various sections of the IPC, and it was more in line of law and order, local law and order. Yes. So somehow the administration really did not find the strength to be able to use its full power and functionality to curb the issue of extortions in Nagaland. But if the government of Nagaland is serious and they really want to use the National Security Act, which is a very stringent act because it relates directly to national security. Yes. It's not like a law that keeps a tab on you if you steal potatoes, if you steal someone's long pen or shoes. It's nothing like that. This is different. You're going to be jailed for 12 months without even being charged of anything. It is very stringent. So if the government really wants to put its feet down on extortion, then I think it's a very good step forward, but we don't know what will happen. You know how Nagaland politics work. In the future, we don't know how this will pan out, but I think it's a very good step that we will be using the NSA to address all extortion related activities in this regard. And second point, Akivi, having police personnel, a lot of police personnel in your towns and cities does not guarantee you safety. Because here the real issue is gun culture. Yes. If somebody comes to your house with a gun and they say, give me 5,000 rupees as house tax, the police on the streets will not be able to help you. And this is something people go through because of a fear that is used as a weapon against the citizens. At a very personal and individual level, people are paying even though they don't want to. And even if they say we don't want to pay and we won't pay, they still have to pay. Why? Because there is the whole issue of guns, violence that is used as a weapon against you to force you into compliance. Yes. So the having police and security people on the streets or increasing the strength of the police force is just a secondary side development that will supplement the work of the police, but it will not necessarily have any effect on what non-state actors do in regard to the livelihood of the people like you.
All right, so thank you so much for joining us on this special newsroom, and out of time I think we need to end the show, but we are thankful that you joined us on this newsroom. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Akivi.
So that was our senior news analyst, Al Nguli, and he just shared his opinion. Well, there is a fear, and especially with many leaders or ex-leaders talking about the gun culture, it still seems to be very existent in Nagaland out of fear. And also the fact that if the NSA was to be imposed in all extortion-related activities, it could or could not help the public of Nagaland. Well, that was all for this hour's newsroom. For more news and updates, stay tuned to HornbillTV. Goodbye.